we're trying to, like I said, it's a hard balancing act to keep the tools affordable to the mechanics. Where it's not just the company buying it, to make tools that are super efficient. There's that. We have a lot of tools that they're for one nut on an aircraft.
Yep.
How many spots? It's literally for one nut, because that one nut will take you 10-15 minutes, but with the proper tool will take you a couple seconds. And be responsive for when customers need a tool, to be quick about it.
Sure.
As you guys know, when you need a tool, sometimes you can't pre-plan for what you're going to do. So you only find out you need a tool when you need it.
Welcome to the Vertical MRO Podcast, brought to you by Vertical HeliCASTS.
All right, everyone, you're ready to contact. You're cleared to the Bravo.
The Vertical MRO Podcast explores the fascinating world of helicopter maintenance, repair, and overhaul with your host, Val Medved.
Now, line altimeter 3029, approved as requested.
The podcast features helicopter technicians, mechanics, engineers, and MRO experts who share invaluable industry insight, knowledge, and stories that will inspire current and aspiring industry maintainers.
Special thanks to our sponsors for this podcast:
Safe Structure Designs,
Robinson Helicopter Company, Precision Aviation Group. Hey everybody, it's Val here from Vertical MRO. Co-hosting with me today was Faith Ortega and guest Joe LaCaze of Helicopter Work Aids. He takes listeners on a journey throughout his legacy, innovation, and the personal side of helicopter maintenance. He shares how a childhood surrounded by aviation, shaped by his passion for the industry, and how that passion evolved into a career rooted in both technical expertise and a drive to improve the tools of the trade. From early influences in the Gulf of Mexico to co-founding Helicopter Work Aids, a family-focused business on aviation tools, Joe highlights the power of mentorship, the impact of embracing challenges, and the value of community and growing as a maintainer. All very important parts here. The conversation moves seamlessly from lighthearted banter about sports, rivalries, and the family stories to deep dives into safety-focused tool innovation, quality control, and evolving needs of helicopter mechanics. With insights on continuous learning, legacy aircraft, and building strong industry partnerships, this episode offers something for everyone in the rotorcraft maintenance world. I'm Val. This is Vertical MRO. Let's get this rolling, baby. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Vertical MRO. I'm your host, Val Medved. And today I have a wicked co-host and a wicked guest. We kind of did some offline chatting here. We kind of actually had some wires that were crossing with each other. We'll kind of get him introduced all the same. But let's welcome along Faith. Faith, what's up?
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing well. Still kind of recovering from a little bit of the cold. It's not the sexy voice here. John, what do you call himself? Sexy Cat one time during a podcast record.
No.
I'm not going to go down that lane with him, but I'm still recovering from there. But you're from a hangar. What's going on?
Yeah. So I'm actually in the work hangar right now. So the internet does best here. So we're just kind of hanging out after hours at Aerobat.
Oh, here I thought you were going to say, I'm just trying to keep it pro, man. I'm dropping helicopters over here. I'm fixing them. I'm flying them.
No, I'm stealing Wi-Fi from Aerobat. So shout out to my boss if you see this.
Editors, let's edit that part out. Beep.
That's okay. Let it rip.
So where do you find yourself, Faith? Where are you at? You're obviously in the Midwest.
Yep. So I am in St. Louis, Missouri. I'm at Chesterfield Airport just hanging out.
Okay, a little side note that the Winnipeg Jets are currently in a playoff position against the St. Louis Blues, and we're up 2-0. I just had to state that there, so go Jets. Faith is like, hockey, nope, not going to say it.
I'm a baseball fan. I got my St. Louis Cardinals. I'm not much of a hockey fan.
All right, okay, all right. As our guest is shaking his head, he's not approving of the baseball selection. So okay, well, thanks for coming in for the co-host, and thanks for introducing us to our guest here. Looking at everything here, it's a story of a business owner, entrepreneur, exploring the journey from his business school to wrenching in the field. A gentleman's family runs a helicopter tool fab company known for making custom tools in almost every one of our toolboxes. That's a lot. You may not know his name. You're about to get to know him right away. So let me introduce Mr. Joe LaCaze. Did I nail it?
Yep.
There it is.
Yep.
Joe, welcome to the Vertical MRO Podcast, buddy. How you feeling?
I'm pretty good. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here with you guys.
Oh, it's our pleasure to have you on board with us here. And again, Faith, thanks for kind of bringing him on board with us here. Again, we did some offline chatting here, and Joe and I were we got some common people that we know in place here, but at the same time, he stunned me a little bit when he said he knew what hockey was, being from Louisiana.
Yeah.
Fill me in, Joe. Tell me a little bit about it.
So yeah, I don't know why, but growing up, it was just a sport that I absolutely loved. I'm actually a Red Wings fan.
Okay.
But we didn't have. So I actually remember the first game I ever saw. It was a Red Wings versus a Maple Leafs game, and the Red Wings won on TV. And then from that point on, that stuck to me. And then I think I got it was like an NHL 95 or 96.
Oh,
and the Red Wings were stacked because those are the years that they won back to back.
Yep.
So I'd always played with the Red Wings, and so I became a Red Wings fan through that because we don't have a professional hockey team in Louisiana.
Yep.
So
yep. You used to have a couple of farm league teams and stuff like that with the Ice Gators.
Ice Gators. We had the Kingfish in Baton Rouge.
Yeah.
And then we had the New Orleans Brass, and the Baton Rouge team has returned.
Okay.
I don't remember their name right now. I think it's Voodoo. I don't recall. But
Baton Rouge Voodoo.
Yep. And we had a team in Shreveport for a while called the Mudbugs.
Yeah. I remember the Shreveport Mudbugs. Yeah. I remember them. So tell me a story about the one you learned about in Brazil. This is like my glasses almost fogged up, just going, what? So
I played a little like street hockey here in the United States as a teenager, but when my father got transferred to Brazil to be a DOM down there, I was 14, and I lived in Brazil from 14 to 19. And I think the first month we were down there, I think we were driving around and we saw some guys playing hockey in the park. We stopped to go talk to them, and then come to find out they're like a local team that plays in the state league, and
in
my
Brazil.
brother and and my brother and I joined, and we played inline hockey in Brazil, and we went to different states and played hockey. It was absolute blast. It was hot.
That's awesome.
You know how that equipment stinks when you play on ice.
When you get the hockey mitt, so Faith, just to kind of and I don't want to leave you out of the conversation too much here because you're like, these guys are talking hockey. There's something called a stink mitt, and when you get into a scrum, it's just because they hold their stick and there's so much sweat that obviously comes from the palm. When you notice these guys, watch the next hockey game, when you notice that they're going to start either going to be fighting with each other or having a conversation with each other, the stink mitt comes out and they always try to put it in each other's faces because it reeks like absolute death.
It's terrible. It's terrible. So imagine playing hockey in Brazil where it's a hot, humid country.
Yeah.
And so the equipment was terrible. Yeah.
Give it the
Faith, have you been to a hockey game?
Yes, I have.
So luckily there's glass all the way around, because if there wasn't glass, if a player flew by you, it's a terrible smell.
Yeah.
That's like psychological warfare. Like if I can't hit you hard enough, I'm going to put this thing in your face that really reeks.
Mitt. Get the old stink mitt.
God dang.
Get the old stink mitt.
That's hilarious.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay.
I grew up playing hockey in Brazil, and then when I moved during A&P school, when I was in A&P school, I found a beer league in Lafayette, Louisiana that I joined, and then I started playing ice hockey then while I was at A&P school. But then once I got out of A&P school and started working, my schedule didn't allow to be on the team, and so I haven't played since.
Look at hockey bringing the world together. Who'd have known? Who'd have known? And I'm predominantly a football player, lover / I used to play, and then I like football more than I do hockey. But at the same time, we're in playoff hockey right now, so everything's feverish hockey pitch right now. So good job on kind of bringing that up to the game there, buddy. I appreciate you kind of telling us a story about that. That's awesome.
And I'm 6'6", so I play defense.
Holy smokes!
Yeah, he's tall, dude.
Oh my goodness! So on skates, you're just shy of 7.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
And then so the stick, I had good reach, and so
yeah, you can hook a guy from the other side of the blue line for sure.
Got a wingspan.
Yeah. Well, good job, man. Good. Well, Joe, this is awesome. It's like I said, I'm the Canadian fan. The faithful are gonna be like cheering you on now because they don't know you until now. So this LaCaze guy, let's sign him up. So, you're LaCaze the third, correct?
The third.
There you go. Okay. Look, give us a little family about you.
My father is from Louisiana. helicopter mechanic. My mother is from Brazil, so I grew up in the United States, but I was born in Brazil.
Okay.
So my dad, as a helicopter mechanic, traveled all over the world. Air Logistics sent them to work in Egypt, and Peru, and Chile. He worked in Antarctica while he was working in Chile. The Chilean, they were in the 80s. There was Antarctica got freed up for like land grabs, and then everybody ran to Antarctica to declare their portion of Antarctica.
Yeah.
And he was in Chile with the Chilean Air Force, I believe, because they were leasing a 412 from Air Logistics, and he was the mechanic on it. And so he ended up going to Antarctica, but he went to Brazil, and then he met my mom in Brazil. And my brother and I were both born in Brazil.
Okay.
But we grew up here in the United States.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we got a Cajun with Brazilian background that can hold his own in a conversation of hockey, but doesn't like the St. Louis baseball team.
No, Cubbies. I'm a Cubbies.
He's a Cubbies fan.
Oh.
No.
Of all the things you could have said, that's not what I thought you were going to pull out of your back pocket.
The gauntlet has been dropped, Faith. Oh, no.
What? Did you live there, or did you just pick a random team? You picked the worst team? You're like, I feel bad for the underdog. What happened? I'm just kidding.
Awesome. Get some shit talking going on here. I love it.
Again, Louisiana doesn't have a professional baseball team. And so, the Cubs in the 90s were, they're on WGN, right? And the games were always in the afternoon. And so you come home from school and there's a Cubs game on. My first baseball team was the Cubs. And if you recall, I don't know if you know, Faith, but there's a movie about a little guy that breaks his arm and he goes play for the Cubs.
Oh, yes.
All those Cubs references made me a Cubs fan.
Oh, big fan of this conversation right here. This is living rent free right in my brain. Because we have a Cards fan and we have a Cubs fan, right? Cards?
That's right.
Yeah. Okay. I got a big shout out to one of my neighbors here. He's Sean. Sean's an ex St. Louis individual there, and he's a Cards fan through and through.
Yeah, so I have a couple of guys that I have on my cell phone that every time the Cubs beat the Cardinals, I have to text them. So I'm gonna have to add Faith to that list.
Add me to the list.
All right.
When I was in college, man, everybody on my floor, because I went to school in Illinois, and so everybody that lived in Illinois figured out Southern Illinois was as far away as they could get from their parents and still be in-state for that in-state tuition. So everybody was originally from Chicago. So every single time there was a Cubs and Cards game on, we would all go to the rec center and sit and watch it together. And I feel like I was the only person from St. Louis other than like one other guy. And we went to the playoffs. And so we were just, oh man, everybody was razzing each other up, and they won that year. And so I was like, oh my God. And I got so much trouble. I still wore my jerseys to class. I took
representing.
Yeah. So, but it was a lot of fun.
Yep. Good stuff. This is turning into a wicked podcast here. I'm loving it here. Faith, what are you drinking? You're still kind of on the clock here, right?
No, not on the clock, but it's just water. I'm just back at work. Yeah.
Joe, you're still at your office. Are you anything in your cup?
I stole one of my workers' office. My office is too messy.
Oh, okay.
I love the honesty. That's awesome.
We're growing fast. It's a mess out here, and so
I appreciate you. So, well, cheers to you guys both, and let's get this rolling here. Joe, we spoke about. Obviously you're a business owner now, but we kind of want to get into the roots of where you started as an A&P. And if you want to kind of just walk us down that lane, what was that little trigger? Obviously, it's in your blood if your dad was a mechanic.
Yes. My grandfather was a World War II aircraft mechanic.
Oh.
My paternal grandfather was a World War II aircraft mechanic.
Roger that.
And my maternal grandfather was a Brazilian World War II aircraft pilot.
Wow. So you got influenced no matter which direction you looked away from or
right.
looked at. Okay.
And then my father, he I don't know why my father decided to become an A&P. I know how he did it, when he did it, but I now that I'm thinking about it, I never asked him why. I think he started off working for an ag company, traveling around, fueling up the helicopters. And I believe the owner asked him to go get his NEP. And then he went to Spartan in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Yep.
which I think it was pre-expensive days. I think back in the 70s, it wasn't that bad.
Yeah.
And he might be like 001, 002 from Spartan.
Damn. You know what, Joe? When we have that question asked, I'm going to now fill the void forever and a day, because I've been asked it a couple of times. How do people, like, I never really understand why I became an AMP or an AME up in Canada. You know what I say? Because it's cool. That's why. You say because it's cool.
Thank you to our sponsor, Robinson Helicopter Company, the choice for unrivaled safety and reliability, so you can accomplish any mission with confidence. For more than half a century, Robinson has been at the forefront of the helicopter industry. From the R-22 to the R-66 turbine, Robinson makes helicopters accessible so more people can accomplish more missions. Climb higher. For additional information, visit www.robinsonheli.com.
Yeah. So my father, I think he did it because he was from a small town and he was just, trying to grow at the company. And then he got his AP, worked a few years in the ag, and I think the opportunity to work for Air Logistics came up.
Okay.
And that's when he joined Air Logistics. I want to say it was in 76 that he joined Air Logistics, so a long time ago. And so he joined Air Logistics, and like I said, he was able to travel to different countries. And then finally, when he got married, had kids, settled down, and then had my brother and I, we grew up in aviation our whole lives. In the 90s, for maintenance flights, he'd call my mom and say, hey, bring Joseph and Alan here so they can go up for a ride. So I grew up going on helicopter rides,
man,
for maintenance flights in the 90s. You can't do that nowadays,
No,
but
no.
It was I wouldn't say it was the Wild West in the 90s, but it was in the Gulf of Mexico. It was a different time in the 90s.
A little less stringent, if I can say that. So,
I imagine it probably wasn't still the right thing to do in the 90s.
Hey, I'm not the American here, but I'm going to say plead the fifth on this one right now, buddy.
but that's a long time ago. Nobody's going to get in trouble for it anymore. So I grew up around aviation. I remember as a child, I think we went to a air show in Pensacola. It couldn't have been Pensacola because I remember it was the Thunderbirds and not the Blue, and then not the
the Blue Angels, right?
Blue Angels. It was the Thunderbirds, and I had an inflatable Thunderbird that I was just so enamored with and playing around with. And I think I popped it, and I was so sad. And I think I stole my brother's inflatable Thunderbird and kept that. And I think from that point on, from that air show, was when I was just completely in love with aviation.
Awesome.
So much so that even my daughter, who's 2 years old, she hears a helicopter or an airplane. We have to run outside and go see what it is.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
And she's still learning how to talk, but she says tutu for helicopter because I go tutu, and so she calls helicopters tutus.
That's the best. That's the best. Faith, we need shirts that say tutus.
My nephew calls them hobby copies because he can't say it. So he calls hobby copies. He's like, hobby copy. And I'm like, yep, that's a hobby copy, buddy.
Yep.
And then if she wants to take over the business, she's going to have to become a helicopter mechanic.
Yeah, she does.
Just, she's got to learn the tools. And we'll see if my son gets any interest in it too. But
and again, I say this respectfully, I always make fun of the reason why that women mature faster than men. Give them a couple of years. Right? I just kind of like look at Faith. She's kicking ass in every degree that she's ever doing this, and she's very, very young, and she's still whooping ass. Yeah. So it's she got into it at a very good age, and look at her now. Look at her go.
Yeah. I'm trying to keep up with the big dogs, man. That was my goal in life, was to act like, or feel like I was going to work with my dad every day. Mm-hmm. And right now, the class I'm teaching, every single one of them, they were all born like within 2-3 years of my dad. And they realized that. They all like made the connection today. They're like, what year were you born?
Yeah, wait.
I was like 96. And they're all like, what? And they all started laughing and losing it. And they're like, seriously? I'm like, yep.
You show them, Faith. Wow. You show them how it's done. You show them how it's done, lady.
Trying, but I'm getting young bucks even younger than me now. I'm getting younger kids in my own class, and they're all like looking at me like I'm the old gal. I'm like, dang. I'm like, it didn't take long.
Well, and you know, funny thing amongst those I was talking to, there's a group of salesmen that we always talk to, and we kind of always just either it's the four closest friends of the averages, right? So you kind of sit there, we're chatting about them, like, you know, guys, remember we used to laugh at the guys that were like 20 years older than us? Yeah. Well, guess who they are? So, you know, back in our day. Okay, so you got clearly you were infected at a very young age of the helicopter tutu or hobbycopter. Yeah, we're gonna call them both now. So now you decided to kind of, okay, I think I need to go to school for this. And how did that all roll out for you? You don't have to give this the exact details.
So,
but just, yeah.
I originally did not plan to be a mechanic.
Okay.
I was absolutely in love with aviation, but I was more leaning towards the fixed wing side, to like commercial, you know.
We can edit this part out. Well, go ahead.
And so I honestly, when I was younger, I wanted to be an air traffic controller.
You wanted to be a nervous wreck at all times.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So originally I wanted to be an air traffic controller. And I think after I had my first job, and then I started looking into how to become an air traffic controller, and I started seeing what their schedule was. And, you know, it was like you work a Monday morning and you work a Tuesday night. Yeah. And then maybe you're off a Wednesday and then you work Thursday night. You're off. I was like, I just don't want a schedule like that. I want a fixed schedule that my father had. So like I said, growing up with my father in the helicopter world, he either worked 7 days on, 7 days off, or 14 days on, 14 days off my whole childhood.
Yep.
And so I wanted that schedule. And then I originally had mentioned to him one time that I wanted to be a pilot. And he was like, you don't want to do that.
Faith, do you have anything to say about that, Faith?
Me also training to become a pilot? No.
Okay. There it is. All right.
Yeah.
And so, but going back also, the world of aviation or the world of helicopters to my family was only offshore.
Yeah.
It was offshore and maybe a little bit of EMS. That's all we knew. That's all that existed. Nobody flew helicopters outside of offshore and EMS. And so, you know, if you wanted to be a helicopter pilot, it's offshore. That's how I thought when I was younger. And then my dad had mentioned that, you know, I didn't want to fly because it's all straight and level, and you're just looking at water, and you just lose your mind after a few years. And so like, okay, all right. Before I became a mechanic, and while I was in college, I was working for H&R Block doing taxes. Okay. Real fun. And once I graduated college, I wanted to go into, like I said, I wanted to go to commercial. So I got a job working for American Airlines, throwing bags, doing ramp service for American Eagle.
Hold on. Okay, let's retract here. So you went from an accountant, and then now you're throwing bags at American.
Correct.
Okay, so, I guess they're kind of the same field of throwing things around.
Yeah. And so at the time, because I lived in Brazil, I speak Portuguese, and my mother's Brazilian. Then I learned Spanish in college. And so I figured that if I got a job with American, I could start, you know, doing the customer service. I speak 3 languages.
Yep.
And I could work my way up. I have a college degree, you know, and try to work my way up in the system. The pay for the baggage handlers, unfortunately, it's not great for those guys. They deserve more, but it wasn't what I wanted.
Yep.
That was when I knew aviation. I was going to work in aviation for the rest of my life. Was the very first day they allowed me to marshal in an airplane. And when that ERJ 145, that's $20-30 million, was barreling down at me, and it felt like I had control over that aircraft for the 10 seconds as it's coming to park.
So the God complex kicks in. Okay, I get it now.
And so it was just, I just fell in love. It was like, this is it. I'm in aviation for the rest of my life. Like it's a huge aircraft. It made me feel this big. And I was like, I'm in aviation.
It's a bug.
So I moved to Lafayette to go to A&P school, and I got a job washing helicopters so I could go to A&P school. So I don't know if you know this, Faith, but for the Gulf of Mexico helicopters, they get washed every day because of the salt.
Yeah.
Every day they get washed. And so the companies would hire helpers to wash the helicopters. Because we're talking, sometimes the bases had 20, 30 helicopters. And so, the mechanics were already busy.
Yeah.
And so we'd have a crew. I was on a crew of 3 guys, and that's all we did was wash helicopters and clean them up, and get them clean in the inside for the customers. So that was my first job working near helicopters. The A&P school in Lafayette had some issues with enrolling. They had certain amount of seats, and I just didn't want to wait. So then I went to Lake Charles to go work to go to Suella, to go to A&P school there. And while I was there, I was able to land a job at Northrop Grumman, which is the big military contractor. And they were doing heavy maintenance on KC-10s. I don't know if you know what those are.
Yep, those are big birds.
Yep, they're DC-10s. Yep, but they're the Air Force air-to-air refuelers.
Yeah.
I will never forget the feeling of opening the door for the first time to walk into the hangar, and there's a DC-10 right in front of me, and I just felt like a tiny ant because of how big this aircraft was.
Yeah,
I mean, it's a wide body aircraft. They're massive. Yeah,
DC-10 that's something to be kind of afraid of when it's flying. Never mind when it's rolling up on you.
And I'm 6'6", and I could barely touch the bottom.
Yeah,
I could barely touch the bottom when I stretched out. That's how high this aircraft is off the ground. That you can walk underneath it.
Yeah,
it's so massive.
That's awesome. So at that point now, so you're like, you go from, like you said, you're a 3-man crew. You're washing all these aircraft now, and you kind of now want to jump into become an A&P. And go ahead.
So I was working on the DC-10s at Northrop Grumman while I'm going to A&P school. And at that point, I decided that I'm going to go my own route. I'm going to go work fixed wing and not go into helicopters because of my dad. I want to do my own thing. I don't want to try to like live up to whatever reputation my dad might have or anything. And I'll never forget. I'm sitting on the engine of a DC-10, you know how big they are, this $10 million engine. And the guy comes up to me and he's like, "Hey, do you know what Jay LaCaze?" And I was like, "Yeah, that's my father." He goes, "Wow, I worked with him back in 1980 something at Air Logistics." I was like, "God, I can't get away from my father." I can't get away from my father. And so once I got my A&P, I decided to so Northrop Grumman, because it's a military contractor and MRO, it's a big MRO. Yeah. You really didn't need an A&P. You didn't need an A&P to work there.
So it's like a 145.
Yeah, it is a 145.
Got it.
In military at that, they really didn't need my A&P. I went to JS Firm and put my resume on JS Firm. And have you guys ever done that before? Oh, you'll get phone calls till this day. I still get phone calls till this day since I put my resume on JS Firm.
You guys got to educate me. What's JS Firm? What is this?
So JS Firm is like the Indeed for aviation.
Oh.
So it's like you can be like pilots, ops, owners, operators, like anything and everything, mechanics. So if you can put in like a keyword like helicopter mechanic, it'll ping every job listing that has those 2 words in it. So it's fantastic. Shameless plug to JS Firm.
Well done.
A lot of people find their place of employment. I'm also floored at how many people don't know about JS Firm.
Wow.
And and like it's been around for a while. It's free. So, you can upload your credentials and all your stuff there. But you're right. So what Joe's talking about, a lot of times when people see your stuff, you'll get a lot of like headhunters.
Okay. Yep.
And so I've even had people try to ask me if I want to work for the company I'm currently working for. I'm like, I hate to break this to you, sister. I might already work here. Yeah. Sorry.
No, that's where you got to mess with them, Faith. No, tell me more about this thing. Like,
you pay how much an hour? Say again. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, what are they paying the new guy?
That's more than what I make. Goddamn, some bitch! I'm gonna have to call somebody.
Getting paid?
Yeah.
I kind of want to know how they fell into the aviation side, because I bet that they didn't plan on doing like aviation.
We should interview them, figure out who's J and who's
Jay's
S.
firm, if you're listening, call us up. Let's do this. This is gonna happen.
So Jay is a recruiter from Jay's firm calls me up when I first got my A&P. I'm ready to get out of Northrop Grumman because I want to use my A&P.
Yeah.
And I get offered a job in Nashville at Embraer, and I think I speak Portuguese. I'm a perfect fit. So I quit my job. I go up to Nashville, get a hotel room because I'm supposed to start work on a Monday.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to name the company that did this,
but you can if you want to.
I'm not.
Okay.
It could have been just one bad recruiter and not the company.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
good call. Good save. Okay.
So I go there on a Friday. I quit my job at Northrop Grumman, which was a good job. I drive up to Nashville with my tools and everything.
I see where this is going now. Yeah.
And it's a Friday. And I'm supposed to start working on a Monday. The HR guy from Embraer calls me. He's like, "Hey man, I don't know why they sent you up here. You don't have enough experience."
Oh no.
And I was like, "Oh man, I quit my job."
Yeah.
And so like I almost shed a tear because I quit a good job for this.
Yeah.
You know? And I was
Yep.
excited to be moving to Nashville, to be the largest city I ever lived in at the time. You know,
Yep.
big city. They have a hockey team. I had to go watch hockey. The Red Wings were in the same division, I think.
That's
as the
right.
Predators.
Yeah.
That's why he wanted
And
to
so
move. Don't let him lie to you.
I was
Yep.
so excited,
Yep.
but it didn't go through. And so that's when I was like, okay, helicopters it is. I came back to Louisiana. I gave my resume to PHI and to rotorcraft, and I believe ERV. Rotorcraft called me up first, and they were also offering me 7-7, which was the schedule that I wanted.
Mm.
And I took them up. And
Who's your trainer, Joe, at Rotorcraft?
my trainer,
Who did you get a chance to work with that we both commonly know?
oh man. So there's a lot of guys. You may have have you ever heard of Shamu?
I know Shamu. I know of a Shamu. He is he's a fine Cajun individual. He is
Yeah. So Shamu's really well known. He's since left RLC Rotorcraft,
Yep.
and I guess he's
Yep.
went to Air Methods. And so I worked with Shamu there, and I'm trying to think of guys that may have been around at the time that you were traveling around Louisiana. What was the years again that you were there?
Oh man, we're talking 2000. Oh boy, mid 2000s through to 2010, give or take.
Yeah, so that's
Ron Kadar is another. Ron Kadar is another guy at Bristow, or now at Airlog. Chuck Davis. There is again Davin Landry. There's that. Now I'm dropping a whole bunch of Cajun names. Or if they hear their names, like, this guy's not supposed to print my name on a freaking podcast right now. But
Sure.
Shamu is legendary. Even though he was with RLC, he is his last name, Faith, was Chameau. So Robert Chameau, and everyone just called him Shamu.
Shamu.
So he is a legend. He is a legend within the Rolls 250 engine in engine shops. But the man is just as much as a legend in every dive bar possible in southern Louisiana.
Both coincide. If you do one, you got to do
the man is a godsend. I'll share this one story. There's a gentleman that I used to work with there. I shall not name him because I know this is going to make fun of him a little bit. But when I was a part of the X-Tex Timken takeover, we got a chance to travel to Louisiana. So Shamu was able to kind of say, let's go for dinner. We'll get a chance to kind of chat with everybody, get a chance to meet you and your new boss. And this gentleman was arrogantly believing himself that he can fit right in down in Louisiana. He goes, well, I'm from Minnesota. I can get in right with Cajuns. I'm like, no, you can't, man. Like, this is some time spent. You got to get in right there, right? So you got to pay your dues. So Shamu took it upon himself to we went to Préjean for dinner. You know, shout out to Préjean down there. It's a good little Cajun spot. And then after that, we found this one beautiful dive bar. The only thing missing was Patrick Swayze and a band playing behind a cage. So we get into this bar and we're a couple of Bud Lights deep. And my boss at that time says, do you think they have any cognac here? And we kind of like, oh no, like, this is a bad idea. Shamu goes up and grabs another tray of beers and hands my my boss a Bud Light with a baby nipple on the top of it. So beautiful, like one of the deepest insults you can possibly offer down in the Gulf South. And Shamu did. He goes, well, the way he be drinking this, he'd be nursing this like right here. I'm like, oh yeah. So Shamu, if you listen to this, buddy, still love you. Hope you're doing well.
That sounds
like
hilarious.
something Shamu would do.
Oh yeah.
I have Shamu on speed dial, so I'm gonna have to ask him if he remembers the story.
Please.
And where did he get the nibble from?
Yeah, that's the question of the day. Why did the bartender all of a sudden, say, here's a nipple for the beer?
He's been there. That's how you know he's been there and he's a regular. He's like, hey, hand me that thing behind the bar that y'all did last week. Yeah, I need to use that bar trick real quick.
Yep. Shout out to Shamu. So go ahead, brother. I kind of cut you back there. So I was messing with you because I knew exactly where you're going with the working at RLC.
Yeah.
So
no, there was.
Safe Structure Designs offers creative, customizable ergonomic safety solutions with over 20 years of experience. Their custom design process is free, ensuring safety and efficiency. Let them create your ideal solution. Visit www.safe-2.com. That's www.safe-2.com for more information.
There was a lot of great people that I worked with at RLC. Rotorcraft. I loved my time at Rotorcraft because it was such a great place to learn to work on helicopters because in the Gulf of Mexico in general, because you're at a helicopter base where there's 10 or more helicopters every day. They're pushing 8 hours a day in flight time.
Yeah, they are.
And so the amount of
high cycles, lots of cycles.
Yep. Yes. And so the amount of, I can't think of the term now, whenever the unscheduled maintenance of issues that came up, and so that you would learn. Scheduled maintenance was all the time, and then the unscheduled maintenance, it was every night also. So you were learning a lot real fast just because of the sheer amount of helicopters there. And then also the quantity of mechanics there, you had a good mix of like older guys that's been there for a long time who have a lot of knowledge and could share that knowledge as long as they were not the cranky ones, but the good ones that were willing to share. And so you would learn. I learned a lot while I was in the Gulf of Mexico.
There were far and few betweens with the cranky ones there, man, because there's a lot of cranky old guys at that time.
Yeah. I believe that ROC was the one that prepped me to be comfortable becoming a mechanic for fire, because then I was the sole mechanic on an aircraft.
Yeah, the Gulf has the ability to kind of train you up real fast and kind of sharpen your teeth, for lack of a better term, into kind of like, because you're right, you're in a corrosive salt environment where you're probably learning to have to wash the vehicle or wash the aircraft through and through, and properly maintain it and be prepared for the unexpected because of what happens on a daily, occurrence there. When you go into a medevac, or if you go into any other field, man, you've seen already all of it, if not most of it, by the time you leave the Gulf. So good on you, man. You picked it up. Yeah. And so I don't want to take away from anybody else. It's just that was my experience, the route that I went. And so to me, it felt like it was a fast learning experience, just because of the sheer amount of helicopters. Because I think when I was at Rotorcraft, the smallest base that I worked at, I think had like 6 or 7 helicopters. Mm-hmm. And then, then I went to one, I think that was pushing 15, 20, which is not nearly the biggest ones compared to ERA now and PHI, who are pushing, probably 50 helicopters in the home base.
Yeah. I was just going to say, I truly think that you're right. And that's how you learn on the fly like that. Like, I remember I worked for 145 for years, and then I was really nervous to make the jump working for one aircraft as its sole caretaker, because I'm like, okay, I've always had someone to be like, hey, have you seen this before? Hey, can you come look at this? Hey, am I doing this right? There's a lifeline physically there. And I was really happy when I got here in my current company, because they do a really great job of making you not feel like you've been thrown to the wolves. There's a lot that you kind of have to improvise and you have to figure out, and you're kind of the parts person, you're the inventory person, you're the mechanic, you're kind of the buffer between the med crew and the pilot. So you wear a lot of hats, but even doing what you did and being in and around aircraft, I tell people that all the time. Like, if if you want to have a career in a specific niche in aviation, especially helicopters, work somewhere at the front desk, start answering phones, be around it. I said, fueling them, work for line service. You pick up the lingo, you start, really understanding what it is that people are talking about when you submerge yourself.
Yep.
The minute you submerge yourself in it, you're like just how we're rattling off FARs, when you hear 145, 91, these different things. I remember being in A&P school and being like, oh my God, I don't know if I can do it like that. I have no idea. They're speaking another language. And my husband even says, like, when he hears me on the phone, he's like, I got nothing out of everything you guys just said for like 45 minutes.
Yeah.
He's like, that is wild. And I'm like, yeah, but when you're every day, like you never stop learning. So, but I love hearing like your glow up story, like how you're washing aircraft, and then like mine is very similar to that. So I sympathize with you greatly. That's really cool to hear.
It's I'm sorry, I'm going to jump in here, Joe, and just as to your credit here, it is another language. And Joe, with you being trilingual, right? You know what I mean? Like it's just like learning another language. When you immerse yourself into something, you will eventually pick up tidbits and eventually become fluent in it. So, good for speaking Spanish, Portuguese, and English, and also being an A&P.
Cajun too, but yeah.
You got to roll them Cajun over there. You know what I'm talking about?
You ain't lying, man. I'm like, holy.
Yeah, I prefer to talk to people, and this is nothing against my Texas buddies, but I can relate and I can understand more people from Louisiana than I can from Texas. And I don't know why that is. It's just, it's weirdest of things, but I guess it must be a Canadian thing. I don't know. The Canadian? Just saying.
Yeah. I think it's funny with
yeah, sorry.
Yeah, that's okay.
It's aviation podcast, right? So
that's right. Yeah, that's right.
Everybody's quit taxiing. I'm at an airport and I'm like.
So I actually think it's funny what Faith said about my like getting into aviation, because I always felt like it was never pushed onto me, but it was just like it's there. You know what I mean? I didn't really have it. A lot of people, they're like, "Oh, I never thought about that." I did, because it was I grew up in it, But what you mentioned about how some people, they get a foot in the door, learn slowly, is exactly what's happened to one of my employees. They are actually leaving us to go to A&P school.
There you go.
And so I'm so proud of her, because I actually wanted her to meet you, Faith, at the VAI, but
there you go.
She left. She was only there the first day, and then I saw you the second day, so she had already left. I made her go back to work.
Let's give her a shout out here. What's her name? Go ahead.
Her name's Gabby Morris.
Gabby Morris. Welcome to becoming an A&P. Here it is.
Yep. So she'll be starting A&P school in August. So,
Gabby, welcome to the world of helicopters and coming over to the dark side.
That's amazing.
And so she would hear the conversations my brother and I would have, and my father, and sitting in the break room, and she started looking for A&P schools, and
there you go.
She started the local technical college here is supposed to start an A&P school, but it takes a long time to get that up and running. And she started hounding the director of the school. Hey, like, when's this going to get ready? I want to go to A&P school.
She's driven.
And so like, I was really proud of like the ambition that she had, because I didn't tell her any A&P schools. I didn't tell her. She figured it out all on her own. She's enrolled herself. She's figured out the financial aid and everything. And I hate to lose her, because she's so great at shipping. And so I'm trying to get her involved in the Whirly Girls, but she's going to have to be I think she has to enroll in A&P school before she joins the Whirly Girls or becomes an A&P. I'm not sure.
She can be an associate member. So I'm technically an associate member. And then as soon as she has her A&P, she can start applying for those scholarships. So I don't quote me on this. I think all of theirs require you to already have it, but Women in Aviation only requires you to be enrolled in a 141, and you can apply for theirs, and you don't have to have your A&P yet.
There you go.
It can be pending. So yeah, definitely. If she sounds like she's pretty legit about it, and that's so exciting to hear. And I'm so happy that she those are the people I feel like that are in it to win it. You know, like I've met some people that are like, well, I started here and I just ended up staying here. And I come in and I'm like, this is cool. We should try this. We should do this. And then sometimes I get the look of like, okay, she has sunshine and rainbows coming out of her ass. She'll eventually get burnt out. She'll get burnt out. And I'm like, I don't think you people understand. Like I eat, breathe, sleep, live helicopters because I just think it's amazing. And I love hearing other people that didn't know that it was an outlet for them. And then they roundabout way end up where they did, and enough people pointing them in the right direction, and then bam, you know. So that's so exciting to hear.
Yeah, I'm excited to what aviation is going to provide to her, because aviation has been great to my family.
Yeah,
you know, I can't. I mean, look where I'm at now. It's all because of aviation, and so.
All right, let's shine a little bit of that, because you've touched on a lot of things going forward already here, dude. So it's like I'm looking at some of the platforms that you maintain along the way. So let's first and foremost, we'll talk a little bit about your company here, because now you're your own boss.
Yep. My brother. So I have to plug in my brother. My brother's not here. He's at home. My brother and I both own the Helicopter WorkAids. We took it over from my father.
Okay.
And my brother is also an A&P, and so so our website's helicopterworkaids.com. So
okay, there you go.
The name of the company.com, helicopterworkaids.com.
Workaids.com, perfect.
Yep.
And some of the platforms you guys support here, I'm just reading, and I'm going down the line here. You tell me if I'm missing anything. You had 206 Bravo model, obviously, 206 L4, 407, S76. And holy shit, you're doing the 407s on the HTS 900 series already.
Oh, so that's what I have maintenance experience on.
Okay.
But yeah, for tooling for the helicopters, we have quite a few.
They got a laundry list.
Okay.
Yes. So for tools, we're in the 206 B and L, and the 407, I would say, are probably 30 to 40% of our tools, just for the 206 and the 407.
Nice. Okay.
And then it starts to break down into the 429 is the next one, the 412 and the 212.
Holy shit.
Big stuff.
Yeah. And then we have tools for the 500s. We have tools for the Robinsons.
Wow.
Yeah. And we're getting into the Blackhawks now.
Yep.
And so as of yesterday, there is a deal going on that we are going to probably go from 15, 20 Blackhawk tools to probably over 100 Blackhawk tools.
Wow.
That's exciting.
Wow. And that's the holy, and that's the bird that everybody wants a flavor of right now too on the UH-60 stuff. Okay.
Yeah, because they're all in the civilian world now. You know, they're doing fire and all kinds of stuff.
They're doing border patrol up here in Canada now. I don't know if you heard that.
Oh no, with the Blackhawks?
They got the approval not too long ago here to fly UH-60s up and along the border here. And I know where I'm at. Again, I'm dead central, Canada up in Manitoba, and it patrols our border between here and northwestern Manitoba or northwestern Ontario and all the way over to Saskatchewan, which is like that's a first time for Canadian aviation, because that's a restricted aircraft now allowed to fly in Canada.
And so so we're trying to get it to the Blackhawks because it's growing in the civilian market.
I was going to ask you. So your brother and you founded the company now here, and obviously it's a family-run business.
So my father started the company. My father started the company in '89. So
1989.
Long time ago.
Faith, you weren't even born yet.
Nope, wasn't even thought about. That's okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So 1989, Helicopter WorkAids jumps off, and that's founded by your dad.
Correct. And so all the tools that originally Helicopter WorkAids started with were all tools that he invented for himself.
Wow. The vision to kind of even get that up and rolling at that time.
Is there a make and model specifically? I'm guessing it was probably Bell products, is what it sounds like it probably started with.
For the majority, yes. So the very first tool that he ever made was a bearing removal tool for the 76 damper, I believe.
That's a big one. Yep.
And I still have it. I have it in my office. I'm planning on mounting the tool.
Yes.
Because it's the very first tool that he ever made that basically started the business.
Yeah. And ironically enough, that was one of the questions here I was going to ask you there. What was the very first tool? And you just nailed it.
That's awesome.
It was for the 76,
which was a popular aircraft back in the Gulf back in those days too.
Thank you to our sponsor, Precision Aviation Group. Mission-critical operators and fleet managers rely on Precision Aviation Group as a worldwide leading rotor and fixed-wing MRO provider. PAG provides tip-to-tail solutions in 4 MRO segments: avionics, components, engines, and manufacturing DER services. A single point of contact gives you access to over 150 million in inventory globally, 24/7. Just call 800-537-2778. Precision Aviation Group. Others sell parts. We sell support.
And so the story goes that, so my father, he went work overseas for 5 or 6 years. And then when he came back to the Gulf of Mexico in 88, they were still struggling with this. And he was like, have you guys not come up with a tool for this yet? So that night he went home and on my grandfather's lathe made the tool. And I have that lathe here in my shop. So we were planning on putting that in like in a glass case too. It's like a little museum of like the first lathe that started the business. And it's a family kind of heirloom, you know?
Yeah. Take away the air quotes, dude. It is an heirloom. Are you kidding me?
Yeah. It's a lathe from the 1940s. And so he made that tool. And I think a coworker saw that tool and said, hey, could you make me one? And so he went and made one for him. And then another coworker was like, hey, could you make me one? And according to my father, that's when the light bulb went off. It was like, hey, I can start selling tools.
Yeah.
And so he started making these tools and selling them. And then I think he started making, the next tool they started making were drains. Now drains, he didn't invent. The drains they're common. Everybody knows about the drains, you know, to not make mess.
Yeah.
But he did make a modification to the drain that made it much easier to manufacture, which made it much cheaper to buy. And so he was making drains that were affordable to the mechanic not expensive that only the company could buy.
So he was the STC creator of the drains.
Basically, he was trying to make tools that mechanics could afford instead of tools that only the company could buy, and they would only buy one.
Okay.
So, and that's the goal that we try to maintain here.
Yeah.
Because my brother and I are still both helicopter mechanics.
Yep.
Is the hand tools that you use every day on the flight line. We try to keep it as low cost as possible that the mechanic can afford. But as we've grown and as everything that's going on in the world, you know, prices keep increasing. But we do keep our prices focused on the mechanic.
No, yeah, I was going to say, I didn't even realize when I started. So I remember asking around and being like, okay, what needs to be in my toolbox for me to work on a 206? And so all the old heads in the shop would always be like, all right, you know, make yourself a little list. If you borrow it more than 2-3 times a year, you know, make a plan on buying it so you don't have to like spend all this money each paycheck, but just chunk it as you go. But you have access to our toolboxes. So I started figuring out, you know, whose toolbox I would go to for what job if I didn't have something that was special, and how much stuff I found that was like fabricated or like handed down. You know, our quality and our director of maintenance guys, their toolbox had like cobwebs on them because they were in the office all the time. And so every once in a great while, my mentor, who was my dad's age, and his mentor is the director of maintenance and the quality guys, there's 3 generations here, I'd be like, hey, Dad, you know, where do I get this tool from? And he's like, Gramps box. You're going to have to go to Gramps box for that one. And I'm like, all right. So I go over there and, you know, I couldn't believe how many of them were gifted down because of how expensive they were. Like these guys weren't going after like the Snap-on stuff that they could purchase themselves. It was the invaluable wrenches or things that they'd made themselves for special jobs.
Yeah.
And I was like, I had no idea. And it's funny because I didn't realize that someone was marketing this, and you guys had already been a thing until I did a job working with some other guys in my company. I was working for Heli Inc. at the time. So I was up in New York, and there was a guy up there. His name's Tony LaCaze. He's from Brooklyn, big Italian guy. If you, I'm going to tell him that I gave him a shout out on here. But
no, you got to put some emphasis on it. Tony LaCaze over there.
Tony LaCaze, yeah, he's from Brooklyn, and
of all places.
Yeah, yep. And that dude is a freaking hoot, by the way. But he, I forget what he let me borrow. I think it was your guys' cap, your 3D printed cap to get one of the transmission things off. And he's like, oh, you don't have one of those? He's like, here, go grab mine out of my box. He's like, seriously, quit. You don't grab a mallet. Go get this. And I'm like, all right. So he's like, you ever heard about him? I'm like, no. And so he opens up a drawer and he's got 3 or 4 things that he's purchased from you guys. And he's like, these boys are genius. You got to buy stuff from them. He kept going on and on and on. And I'm like, so someone already has marketed this and he's like, yeah. And so I had no idea. And some of the other guys, I started working other places and I'm like, let me take a picture of that. So I'd go somewhere and be like, hey, have you ever seen this before? And they're like, oh yeah, we got one. We made one. And I'm like, you can buy them so you don't have to keep passing yours around. And they're like, oh, no way. And I'm like, yeah, but it kills me. Like how many people know or don't know. I feel like I got a 50-50 shot if I meet somebody that they know about helicopter work aids, which is great. Like I said, when I started, I had no idea, but I think that's a genius way to market because we're so niche. But man, how much some of those tools, like you said, cost from the manufacturer. Because I know Bell back in the day, they used to give you the specs to make your own tool. A lot of people don't know that, but like buried in the manual, they were like, yeah, if you can find a lathe and some dude that's willing to help you out, like here's how to make this. But not many people do that, want to do that, know how or have the time. And then since newer Bell models have been pushed out, I feel like Bell's like, why don't you just buy it from us so we can make sure it's fabbed right? Or, so.
Well, I don't want to drop any names, but there's a major helicopter manufacturer out there that buys their own tools from us.
Uh-oh.
Awesome.
I love it. I love it. Of that whole story, your New York accent was pretty good. Well done.
I practice it a lot. That's my alter ego.
I forget about it. Forget about it. I can't do Cajun accent, so you got that one nailed. Yeah, it's good. So we got to throw a little Donnie Brasco in with Cajun. That's a tough one. Oh boy. Okay. Anyway,
we definitely want to have all of our tools in everybody's toolbox. But the problem is that we design ours to hopefully last forever.
Yeah.
So once you buy it once, you don't need to buy it again. So then we have to keep coming up with new tools.
Yep.
We got to keep coming up with new tools to convince you guys to keep buying tools,
But it's the reinventions, right? That's what's going to keep it always interesting. If you guys already kind of mastered a master plan and make it something better down the road, if it might take 5-10 years or something like that, but if it's something that's really good and everybody's using it by the sounds of the way Faith kind of discovered it, it's that, and that's probably the best advertising. I think, we throw millions of dollars on everything, advertising, sales and marketing and stuff like that. But the best form of advertising, Joe, is exactly what you're doing. You're creating cool parts that are actually feasible, and usable for a long time. And that's when I'm not surprised when you hear about the specialized tools being gifted down or literally willed down. Should someone be leaving or retiring from the position, and all of a sudden that young next up and comer is inherited the tools, that's a gift. That's a gift of beyond, like it's a transcending gift. So it's like, that kind of stuff right there. That's the shit that you really want to kind of get a hold of and never let go of. So good for you for kind of creating that one and done tool. That's awesome. I'd love to hear that all day long.
Like I said, it's a hard balancing act to keep the tools affordable to the mechanics, so where it's not just the company buying it, to make tools that are super efficient, There's that we have a lot of tools that they're for one nut on an aircraft, how many spots? It's literally for one nut, because that one nut will take you 10-15 minutes, but with the proper tool will take you a couple seconds, So we're trying to do that and be responsive for when customers need a tool, to be quick about it, because as you guys know, when you need a tool, sometimes you can't pre-plan for what you're going to do. So you only find out you need a tool when you need it.
Yep.
And you don't want your aircraft grounded for a few days.
It's good. It's like a good insurance. Better to have it when you need it, not need it when you have it, right? So did I mess that up? Yeah, I probably did.
But not everybody takes that advice. Like, get phone calls. It's like, I need that tool yesterday.
Stand by for a message after a word from our sponsors.
Thank you to our sponsor, Robinson Helicopter Company, the choice for unrivaled safety and reliability, so you can accomplish any mission with confidence. For more than half a century, Robinson has been at the forefront of the helicopter industry. From the R-22 to the R-66 turbine, Robinson makes helicopters accessible so more people can accomplish more missions. Climb higher. For additional information, visit www.robinsonheli.com.
Safe Structure Designs offers creative, customizable ergonomic safety solutions with over 20 years of experience. Their custom design process is free, ensuring safety and efficiency. Let them create your ideal solution. Visit www.safe-2.com. That's www.safe-2.com for more information.
Thank you to our sponsor, Precision Aviation Group. Mission-critical operators and fleet managers rely on Precision Aviation Group as a worldwide leading rotor and fixed-wing MRO provider. PAG provides tip-to-tail solutions in 4 MRO segments: avionics, components, engines, and manufacturing DER services. A single point of contact gives you access to over 150 million in inventory globally, 24/7. Just call 800-537-2778. Precision Aviation Group. Others sell parts. We sell support.
Yeah, everybody, there it wraps up another episode of Vertical MRO Podcast. A big thank you to our guest, Joseph LaCaze of Helicopter WorkAids, for sharing his journey from a childhood surrounded by aviation to building a legacy of innovation and mentorship in the helicopter maintenance. His stories remind us that the heart of our industry is not in the tools we use, but in the people who shape them through passion, perseverance, and commitment to community. Whether you're a seasoned maintainer or just starting out, we hope you found the inspiration in Joe's insights on embracing challenges, continuous learning, and the value of strong partnerships. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe to the Vertical MRO Podcast on your favorite platform, whether it's Apple, Spotify, or anything else that you would use. And don't forget to check out the upcoming industry events in Kelowna, BC on October 7th through 10th, and in Dallas-Fort Worth area there from November 10th to 12th. They're going to be pretty kick-ass. On behalf of your hosts, myself, Val Medved, and Faith Ortega, thanks for tuning in. Stay safe, keep learning, and remember, every legacy in aviation starts with a single spark of curiosity. We'll see you next time on the Vertical MRO Pod. Keep the rotors turning and the stories flying. I'm Val, over and out.